Welcome, everyone. So excited to be here with Shu Yap in Australia. Oh my gosh, we are on opposite sides of the equator. We're having so much fun connecting around the lunar standstill, and we're coming up very quickly. So we're recording this in early January. On January 11th, the north node is going to reach zero Aries, which that is the March equinox point, our spring, your fall. And the south node is going to reach zero Libra, and that is the September equinox point, your spring, our fall, because we're in
Yes.
opposite seasons. But
Hmm.
the equinox being equal day and equal night, so we're having that experience is the same. Solstice is a little different story. Between the two. So it's summer where you are, it's winter where we are here in the Northern Hemisphere. And the something I'm just really loving about Shu is that she is studying how the lunar standstill is working south of the equator and far south of the equator too. So, which is it makes a difference where you are and how we experience these things. Like your latitude can make a difference. So, for a quick example, in Scotland, which is like 50 plus degrees north latitude, at certain times of the lunar standstill, the moon literally skims the land. That's called when the moon walks the land. And then in Colorado, which is probably more like 30, maybe close to the same latitude you are north as you are south as they are north. And there's these chimneys where the only time the moon is between the chimneys is during the lunar standstill, and that's coming up pretty quick. So I think these things have been very well known in the northern hemisphere, but not so well known in the southern hemisphere. So I'm very excited to hear about your experience and what's going on for you around this time. And just also for people to know that might not have heard me talk about this before, I'm kind of passionate about it. It's this is a 19-year lunar standstill. So every 19 years, the moon comes back to the same place it was 19 years before. And it goes in these extreme out of bounds. So it can do these things that it doesn't do at other times during the lunar standstill time. And when the nodes reach those zero Aries, zero Libra points, we know we're at the center point. So it's actually been happening for a good year and a half before the exact and a good year and a half after the exact. And then there's a little bit of spillover into, on either side of that beyond that. But anyway, it's a very exciting time. And so, yay, thank you for being here, Shu.
Thanks, Cayelin. I'm so excited to be here because it's because of you that I was introduced to the lunar standstill, and I was so inspired after listening to your talk. I think we were presenting at the same conference. I think it was the conference that was being run by Jamie Goldstein.
Yes.
And I heard you talk about the lunar standstill, and I just thought it was so cool. And ever since then, I had been following your ephemeris and getting out there to sit with the moon, whether or not I could see the moon. Um, I have been sitting with the moon every time, and that was probably about 2 years ago or more perhaps. And so I kind of feel like this is so exciting that we're now at the peak. It seems like a long time coming for me, so I can't even imagine what it's been like for you, who's actually witnessed a couple of lunar standstills, right? In your
Well,
lifetime.
the first one that I actually witnessed in Scotland in 2006. I was in Scotland in 1997 at the inner standstill, meaning the moon doesn't go out past the sun; it stays inside the boundaries of the sun. But it does something somewhat similar at that time, so it wasn't really a major outer standstill like we're experiencing now. Did that in
Mm-hmm.
2006, and then last summer got to go back to the Standing Stones in Scotland to be there again. And we didn't get to see it. It was cloudy. But
Right.
the thing is the stones are so vibrant and so alive. And even if there's clouds, the moon is transmitting and enlivening those stones, and you get the transmission, even if you don't get to see it, which is cool.
Yes, that's good to know because and that's been my experience too, sitting um in real time with the moon, whether or not it is visible or not. It's still powerful. And I think it's been the fact that we've been sitting with the moon all these times, having know nothing about this concept, that I've just picked up bits of, yeah, transmissions, I guess, on what it is and its essence, and to the point now where it's led me to hold my own pretty major event on my property for this lunar standstill peak. And the magic surrounding that, all the synchronicities that have happened, the people that have just automatically gathered, people of really high caliber and very knowledgeable folks and talented folks that have come together to be part of this. And I had someone ask me the other day, "Oh, you must be super busy and stressed out because this is a pretty big deal." I said, "I'm not." And I usually have a lot of social anxiety, and that's the reason why I don't have parties, which is basically why this was essentially a birthday party idea. Um, and I was surprisingly unstressed because I feel like everything's just falling into place. So I guess my next challenge is the sky and the weather. That's got to hold up because it's a fully outdoor event. So we'll be doing some good sky weather magic in between now and the 12th of January.
Right. And big happy birthday to you too, coming up pretty quick on the
Thank you.
yeah, so, and also just to say that it is high magic. I mean, the reason they built standing stone circles, the reason that they built kivas every 19 years at Chimney Rock in Colorado, because they wanted to capture the energy of the moon when it was doing its thing in its most major standstill time. And so I feel like it is enlivening and enlivens us in a way that we don't
Mhm.
necessarily um, recognize or we've not been taught. It's not something that's part
Mm,
of our everyday culture. So the fact that you're doing what you're doing and getting people to come together, and it's coming to, because they built the Standing Stone Circles in Scotland to have gatherings every 19 years. That's what
right.
they're for. They would
Yes.
that come from all over and gather in those stone circles for the time when it was the solstice and the moon, full moon, or in the summer, of course, there is your winter.
Yeah.
So, so for
Yeah.
you doing this in January in your summer is perfect. And so it's like
Hmm.
a different experience. And also, so does the moon tracks low in the summer for you when it's Gemini Cancer is tracking low across the sky, right? Is that
Uh,
correct?
so no, well, when the moon is the moon will be in Cancer. Yes, it will be low.
Yeah,
Yes, because that's essentially our a winter sign for
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Yeah, so like, yeah, it does kind of walk across the land to a degree, but not as shallow as, say, Callanish, where it literally is like almost a flat line across the
right.
land. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so our in our summer, the in June, the moon is tracking low, the sun is tracking high, and when the sun tracks high, the days are longer. And the moon's opposite that at the full moon, so it's going to track low is
Yes,
what's happening.
it's so confusing, but it's yeah, I always have to think about that. And
So,
everything in the sky is upside down. Like, for me, it's the right way up, but
right,
upside down to you. Like
right.
all of the constellations
Yeah.
are the other way around, which
Yeah.
is
I've
which can
been
be really confusing.
Yeah, I was south of the equator in 19 oh no, 2002. And and I was there in December, which was there, of course, summer there. And I was like, whoa, like looking at certain constellations and things, is just going, okay, I realize I would need to come and be here for a while to actually fully understand what's going on here.
Yeah, and I did go to America for my first time. Well, first time in the Northern Hemisphere, earlier last year, because we're just into 2025, and I just found like I was lost all the time, or I was a bit disorientated, and I realized I just didn't know the sky, and I feel like the Southern Hemisphere skies. there's so much more going on. There's because we've got this, the Milky Way band, and like it just seems like there's so much more in the sky than when I was in the Northern Hemisphere.
Well,
And
that because I think in certain times of the year, the Milky Way band is more visible here
mhm,
than other times of the year. So, like in our summer, actually, you should be able to see the what near galactic center, that dark band of the Milky Way. Um, but sometimes it depends. Like sometimes it's more up and down, sometimes it's more to the side.
on
Just
the
depends on
side.
the season and also on your latitude makes a difference.
Yes. It does, yeah. It's such a big minefield. But what you were saying about the gathering, um, when I decided to run this event, I literally thought there was going to be a small group of us because no one would really be interested. I thought it'd just be a group of five of my witchy friends, and that was it. But it turns out there's probably about 50 or 60 people coming, and none of them are astrologers. They don't really know much at all about cosmology, but it just goes to show that people are interested, and maybe they're seeking out answers for connection, because that was what we did in the past. That was our birthright, to be able to find meaning from our stars and from the constellations and as guides to our lives. And so I found that very impressive, that a whole heap of so-called normal people have confirmed that they're coming to this event.
And I mean, when would it happen but at the lunar standstill? Come on.
Exactly. The
How
peak
cool
of the
is that?
moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And that
peak of
people can start,
gathering.
when people can start to get that there's something magical going on, something amazing, it's like, I think also because there's more awareness around it now than there was even when I first started learning about it. Uh, and that sense of that there's something beyond what we experience on an everyday reality that's happening and that it's waking things up inside of us and it gets us excited and I love what you said because ancient cultures spent their time under the sky at night.
Hmm.
That was
Hmm.
what they did. That's why they built standing stone circles and pyramids and petroglyph sites and chambered cairns and uh, different ways that they could track that link between the earth and the sky and
Mm.
and they would have ways of doing it. And so these standing stones in Callanish, they knew when the 19-year lunar standstill was happening based on what was going on with the moon, and they could see it from the standing stones. And literally, that's created in such a way that if you can see the moon, because sometimes you can't, it looks like it rolls right through the stone circle. It's like right there.
Mm.
And if you have somebody standing in the right place, you can capture the moon completely surrounding them. So, like, you could have a man or
Like
a
a
woman with
silhouette.
the moon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
silhouette.
special.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. And in a way, it's almost like people sat there because the stars are holding space for them. But because that doesn't happen anymore, that's why we see psychologists and counselors and healers. We've got to, it's important to be heard and um, to have space held for us in our own special ways. And I guess the stars played that important role in the past. And so, imagine how much more grounded and connected people would be if they just spent more time under the stars, but also to acknowledge these really momentous times, in which the stars are making huge signals to us, like the lunar standstill.
I love what you're saying for like lots of reasons, but but also the other thing is when the moon is going into those extreme out of bounds places, it will tend to occult certain stars. Occult meaning, the star is there, then the moon comes and covers it and then uncovers it. And so it amplifies the energy that's coming from there's like codes of light or information or some things that are coming from those stars that the moon is transmitting directly to the earth. And so we have a chance to tune into that in ways that we don't always get to. And in fact, Shu and I were talking about this earlier about this. There's a full moon on January. I guess it's the uh, the 12th, 13th. What is it?
Mm-hmm.
It's on January 3rd.
12th.
So January 13th here. I think it's the 12th for you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pretty far out. of Bound's full moon in Cancer. But she was saying something that isn't it occulting El Nath? And I was like, no, I think that was last month, the full moon. But what I realized is that, oh yeah, the moon is going to occult the star called El Nath a few hours before the exact full moon in Cancer, because
Mm.
the star is at like 23 degrees Gemini. And the last full moon was around 23 degrees Gemini, and that there was an occultation that only could be seen in certain parts of the world, but we still get the energy of that.
Mm.
And the thing I
Hmm.
love about that star is there's another star next to it called El Heka, and those are the tips of the horns of the bull constellation.
Mm. Yep.
And and that it was there was the all these stories about how it was like the gateway to the Elysian fields, paradise, heaven, whatever, and that you had to pass the test by going past the bull to get there to that place. And it's also pointing right to the place where the plane of the galaxy and the plane of the solar system cross, where the June solstice sun rises at the galactic edge currently.
Oh,
So we
beautiful.
look out past our galaxy and when we're looking out at that part of the sky. And so El Nath is being occulted. The Pleiades are being occulted for the next couple of years. Um, I think Antares is being occulted for the next couple of years. So some of the big stars, big name stars that people often will recognize are being occulted.
Hmm.
So that means that their light codes and their energy is being beamed to us in a stronger way, and we can connect with that. And even if you don't see the occultation, you will see the moon very close to those stars
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
passing by. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was actually kind of doing some catch-up reading on, the Bernadette Brady's book on fixed stars. It's such a great book, and I really need to study it more. But I was reading this section on what it means when a moon conjuncts a fixed star. So this is just a conjunction, but an occultation is essentially a supercharged conjunction. So I guess the filter that it brings to the moon, like what the moon's role in is what she says. It's what you're looking for and what you're finding, is what that means. Like the moon shows you what your beliefs are, what your ideals are, and what you're passionate about, and how we receive nurturing, including our perceptions of our mothers, like what aspect of their teachings and transmissions to us um, was, that conjunction meaningful, like in terms of what the mother taught us. So, in terms of, say, if it was something like El Nath being the point of the bull, maybe it's something about precision or carefulness, or that point is like um, such a great force, but in such a precise way. And I think Ptolemy used Saturn as one of the indicators for Al-Nath, Saturn and Mercury. And when I think of Saturn and Mercury together, I'm thinking of something very technical, or someone that's just really careful and precise about whether it's what they say or whether it's what they do and the actions that they take. So maybe it's thinking about how our mothers taught us to be careful and how to use our power in a very precise way, and or how to be clearly very conscious and independent. So I can certainly say that my mum taught me that. So I wonder, whether this occultation might bring those thoughts to us.
Yeah, and the series of occultations. So El Nath is going to be occulted monthly. Now it won't always be a full moon, and it won't, it can be different phases of the moon, new moon, whatever. So we won't always see it, but the energy is there until April of 2027. So that's the
Mhm.
next couple years. We're going to have these occultations happening every month or very close. So the transmissions are coming. And
Mm.
there was something else. Oh, alchemy. So, so the I think you said you have an alchemist who's going to be at your event or
Yes,
somebody.
in fact, we have two. We have one that it specializes in the alchemy of the Tibetan culture. and that's Kim Lai, and he is very knowledgeable because he had access to the Dalai Lama's library in the 80s and did translations of their texts himself. And we've also got Ben Chirali, who is a Hermetic alchemist and a laboratory alchemist, an educator here, and he's made a really special tincture of silver for us to have for this evening, which we will all ingest before our ceremony, which will be super, super special. And we're so lucky and honored
Yeah.
to have this. Yeah.
I love how the magic is coming together. And literally all you did was have the intention and it just came together. So, and I
Yes.
think that's how it's supposed to work.
And do you want to hear a funny story? Because Ben's involvement only literally just came about yesterday or the day before, because it is 3 years after New Year's. I went to this festival in Australia, and I was happening to, I heard that they were giving out free cups of tea, at the women's tent. So I thought I'm going to go there with my flask and get my morning cup of tea. And my husband said, "Oh, you might want to pop in next door because I think you'll like this talk." And so I'll pop my head in, and it was a talk on Hermetic alchemy. And and that was Ben doing his talk. And I didn't know who he was at the time, but halfway through the talk, I realized who he was. And he realized who I was because we had both heard about each other through another alchemist who said that we need to meet. And, before long, the talk was pretty much a conversation between Ben and I. So we kind of hijacked the talk. I'm sorry, Ben. And then he said to me after the talk, he goes, "I just realized who you were halfway through the talk." I said, so did I. And I said, "What are you doing next week?" Or 2 weeks later. And I said, "You need to come to this." And so, yeah, that's how it all came about. And so this is an example of how when you set the intention, especially an intention to do high magic, the doors just open up for you. And, you don't need any drugs or psychedelics for that to happen. Like it just opens up, when you open your heart out and your intention there. And maybe that had something to do with, me and the kids sleeping outside at the last full moon under the Elnath occultation. And yeah, so maybe the intention was set there. But it's just so amazing to watch all these omens come through.
So
It's
just,
very reassuring.
yeah, so something that I love about the ancient alchemists and the Hermetic, or they were the ones that knew when planets, the moon or any other planet was near a specific star, and they had 15 magical stars. They called them the Bohemian stars, and that those stars would be amplified. And that was the time to make their potions, their elixirs, their talismans, their intentions, their ceremonies. That they would do that then. So they
Mm-hmm.
they were tuned into the power of how the moon or any planet near a certain star can amplify the energy of that star. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love the Bohemian stars, the magical stars. Uh, I don't think Elnath is one of them, but I would include Elnath as one of them, just saying. And,
Right,
and
right.
the Pleiades definitely are considered to be one of them. And the other thing that you might find fun, and if you haven't heard of this, I just love this book so much. It's called Starlight, Elixirs, and Cosmic Vibrational Healing by Fred Rubenfeld, Michael Smulkis, and Fred Rubenfeld. And I don't know that it's still in print, but I was doing
Mm-hmm.
when I back in the 90s, I was doing a lot of like astronomy, astrology, emails. I was sending them out to an email list. This was
Mm-hmm.
before how we have email things are happening nowadays, but and they somehow heard about what I was doing and they sent me their book. They said, "You should be,"
Oh, no.
because what they did was they channeled information directly from the stars. All like it's a pretty thick book, and so a lot of different stars and what the energy of that is. Plus, they were making elixirs from the stars. They had these powerful telescopes, and they would focus the star energy into elixirs, and then so you can still get the elixirs. So some Pegasus Productions, I think it is the name of it,
Mm-hmm.
where you can get
Mm-hmm.
those elixirs from the stars. You can make your own too, but uh, the way they have revisioned, because a lot of times the stars have sometimes a very dark association with them because the ancient people maybe they were seeing, oh, there's the moon passing by the star and this thing happened, and then they would have a negative association. So our job is to really not only how are we connecting to the lunar standstill, but how are we connecting to these stars that are also they're evolving, we're evolving, our understanding of them is evolving, and it's part of the high magic, as you were saying. It's like you put out the intention and the magic happens. I've had such incredible experiences over the years doing this
Mm,
work. It's just I highly recommend it. Even if you don't know what stars you're looking at, go look at the stars.
yes, that's
Get
right.
that kind of
And
call.
in terms of good, bad, ugly stars, I mean, I don't tend to look at them like that. I see everything in the cosmos as fit for purpose for something. So
Yes,
it's just a matter of finding your alignment with what you're doing and picking the right star that can deliver and assist you in your operation or your purpose or your action.
right.
And to me, people talk about, oh, when the stars align. Well, to me, I think stars are aligning all the time. It's us needing to align with the star to
Yes.
be able to then align our intentions and our context with it. So that makes every star fit for purpose and useful for something. We just need to have that knowledge of knowing what that something is, which is why we need to spend more time observing and under the stars and noticing things, basically listening to things in our lives.
Yes, my favorite saying is we inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. And then I like to add on to that because we are the mysteries. So those mysteries live through us. But when we're connecting to and asking for guidance and support and having intentions and so on with the starry beings in our sky. And one of the reasons I love the book so much is that they really give you a place you can start tuning in to what the meaning of those stars are. You might get a completely different meaning, but it's a positive look, start, a place to start. And that, the ancient peoples, they spent so much time under the sky and they knew that's how they knew about the lunar standstill. So here we are in the lunar standstill time, coming up on this full moon. The nodes are shifting from Aries to Pisces. We have this next year, every time the moon is in Gemini, Cancer, and Sagittarius, Capricorn, it's going to be out of bounds and pretty far out of bounds beyond what the sun can do. So if the sun's rising like between these 2 points on the horizon, the moon's going out past those points, meaning it's outside the boundaries of our everyday reality. So we can co-create something amazing at this time. And even if the moon's not full, even if it's just a quarter moon or whatever, tuning into the moon when it's in these signs out of bounds takes us outside the boundaries of the sort of more limited construct of our current reality.
Yeah. And to give you an example from my personal life of that, I guess what I really love about an out of bounds moon, especially, is that it allows you to really step outside of your comfort zone to do something that you usually wouldn't do, like call it wild or call it, extreme or whatever it is. Like, for example, this event, I would never have done this in the past. Like, I get so anxious when more than 5 people turn up at my place.
Right.
Um, yes, so yeah, I'm a bit of a hermit. So it's a really great opportunity while the moon is out of bounds, like you said, in the signs of Cancer, Capricorn, Sag, Gemini for probably the next 12 to 18 months. Like, if you're struggling with something or you're struggling to get something over the line, or maybe it's a confidence issue around that, you can work with the moon to help help hold your hand through these processes to step into your wild nature. Not wild, but just
Well,
extraordinary, essentially.
extraordinary. Yes, wild, extraordinary, whatever. I mean, we don't want to hold it in too much, I don't think. But at the same time, it's good to step outside of your comfort zone, as you're saying. And those who can step out even more than usual will have better results. It's like you're going to have results
Mm.
from this. It's going to be amazing. The magic, it is just such high magic that's happening over this whole
Mhm.
2025 into 2026, definitely. And
Yeah.
I just want to mention quickly too that the equinox in March, so our northern hemisphere spring, southern hemisphere fall. um, but equal day, equal night. And the last quarter moon that is the most extreme out of bounds moon of the year. Now, again, the last quarter moon is going to not rise till midnight, so you might not really get to see it unless you're up like late.
Yeah.
You'll see it in the morning, then and you might see it set if you're out and about, but it'll be daytime when that happens. But still, the energy is being transmitted, and the moon is what's happening when we have the Sag Capricorn, especially when it's in Sag, because the moon goes dropping so far below the ecliptic, it's literally crossing over galactic center. And then it goes over Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, which is the gateway to the center of the galaxy. And so that's happening every month. And so this equinox is happening with the equinox, and it's just blowing my mind. So even if you can't see it, you can tune in, and we could say that the center of the galaxy is the birthplace for everything in our galaxy. And so
Mm.
it's like a cosmic womb. So we can tune in to that. And as the moon passes over it every month, during the lunar standstill, it's doing a direct transmission to the Earth from that galactic womb. And how cool is that? Like we really want to be tuning into that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great time to charge your crystals for people that actually put their, this next full moon in Cancer, moon at its own dignity. And, at the peak of the lunar standstill, it's a great time to bring out your crystals to charge and whatever. So you don't need to know all this technica hermetica and make all your, special potions and lotions. It could be just breathing in the pneuma, bringing in that breath into your body and accepting it. So it can be as
And
simple as that.
celebrating it too, and being grateful for the possibilities that are being offered to us at this time. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that. And just again, people that are in the northern hemisphere is probably January 12th, well, also in the more western time zones, and then southern eastern time zones are it'll be January.
It's 12th to 13th for us.
It is. Oh, okay. Sorry, I
Yeah.
got it backwards then. Or
Yeah. It might be 11th to 12th for you,
Uh,
possibly.
it's the 13th. It's happening on the 13th for us, the full moon.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. So ours is happening on the morning of, like, the 12th of the evening into the morning of the 13th. So it kind of straddles both days.
Right.
So yours might be
You're,
during the
you're getting
day.
you're getting the day sooner than we're getting the day.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
like here it is January 2nd where I am, and it's January 3rd where you are. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, it's all very confusing. So, and the thing is, yeah, like um, the with the wild moon nature, like and out of bounds moons, yes, sure, there could be some instability. It's things being shaked up, things being agitated, but like with any alchemy, like any transformation, like we have to go through some kind of a shakeup. We have to go through some kind of rebalancing act to recombine all of the parts together,
yeah.
um, in whatever we're doing. So, yeah, like I think this year with this out of bounds moons, like, it's a big pivot. And isn't that interesting that the moon is pivoting from its peak and back down towards, moving in its downward motion towards the ecliptic, over the next few years. And this is the year of the great Saturn Jupiter squares, the squares that started last year and the two remaining squares. That is the first quarter square of the Saturn Jupiter conjunction back in 2020. So, people are calling this the big pivoting year, of seeing a structure form in which will carry us and our intentions through. So the moon is echoing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Saturn moving into Aries, back into Pisces, back into Aries, Neptune moving into Aries, back into Pisces, back into Aries. We've got Venus
And
going retrograde in Aries, going back to Pisces, going back to Aries, and Mercury doing the same thing. It's like this whole
and
day.
the eclipses.
Yeah, the eclipse is happening in March. right around the
Yes.
equinox time. Like
Yes.
on
So
equinox, yeah.
so
So
check out your Aries Pisces part of the charts. Like that's where it's all happening. That's where our big lessons are for 2025 for all of us universally.
yeah,
We are getting acquainted with the karmas of the fish and the ram.
yeah.
And so everyone needs to probably meditate on what that part of the chart means for all of us, and yeah,
But
and
one of
learn
the
those lessons.
I'm a Pisces sun with Venus and Aries, and my I have twins that were born 2 days after my birthday. They're Pisces suns with lots of Aries, and my daughter about to turn 40, and she was telling me that she sees because we think of Pisces as like universal love and compassion and empathy, and Aries is the warrior who's going out there to fight for the good cause. And she said Aries is loving, maybe not in the same way as Pisces, but it's fighting for what it loves. It's
Yeah.
for its family, for what it believes in. And I was like, that's so brilliant. I don't know that I ever really thought about it that way. Like that's, oh, my cause is something I really love.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I'm going to
They're
go and
great
do it.
advocates.
Yeah, I'm going to go do what it takes to help support that and make sure that happens and take the action that's necessary. So
Yeah.
I was like, very brilliant.
Well, I mean, this out of bounds moon and the next full moon is actually going to be having a Mars occultation as well, a day after.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, maybe we should talk a bit about Mars because it is a very Marsy time. We're in the midst of a Mars retrograde,
Mhm.
and the moon will make its lunar standstill peak, and then a day later it will be occulting Mars, so literally same degree and same by latitude and longitude a day later. And at the same time, Mars is making its halfway point of its synodic cycle with the sun.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
it's
Like a full
so we're
moon.
see
Like a full moon
exactly
effect. Yeah.
another pivoting symbol, I guess, because when Mars, well, I'm interested to hear more about what you think about the Mars Sun opposition, but the way I see it from a, say, if we're looking at the Hellenistic perspective of it, the up until the opposition, Mars is what we call in a state of overcoming the sun. It rises before the sun, and technically it has a little bit more power with the sun. But what happens at the opposition is that the sun will start to then rise before Mars, and then there's a shift in power, and the sun all of a sudden becomes has the upper hand in that relationship. So the way I like to interpret that is, simply by looking at the houses in your chart that are ruled by Mars and the Sun. So Mars rules two houses, so say Scorpio and Aries houses. Those two priorities of the house's themes will be stepping back in priority. And then the Sun's house, wherever that might rule, is going to take more priority from then on in this journey of the Mars Sun cycle, which started. When was the Mars Sun conjunction? Was that?
Oh,
Can't
that
remember
was a
now.
while back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, a
Um,
year ago,
Mars went,
about a year ago.
yeah, yeah, about that
Yeah,
because it's about a 2 year cycle, so it would have been about a year ago to have it
yeah.
to have its opposition. Um, so one of the things I feel about looking at the Mars cycle is when Mars is retrograde and it's opposite the sun, it's closest to the Earth. So it
Mm-hmm.
has a greater energetic that is connecting to the earth because it's so close to the earth. It's brightest at that time. It's in its greatest expression. Like you can really see Mars. If it's closer to the if Mars is close to the sun, you don't see Mars as well. As
Mm-hmm.
it's opposite the sun. So that's another perspective. Like it's actually in its great strength. I know a lot of times people look at the retrogrades as debilitating or not, they're not in their greatest strength, but literally every planet that's retrograde is closer to the Earth at the
Mm-hmm.
time that it's retrograde. So
Yeah.
Venus, it's true for Venus, it's true for Mercury, it's true for Jupiter and Saturn, it's true for all the planets. And so maybe it's also an opportunity for us to look at the retrograde a little differently, and that
Mm-hmm.
Mars is opposite the sun in Cancer. So Mars is in Cancer. So the sacred masculine uh, starting a journey to how to be more nurturing, to be more kind, to be more loving, to be more um, like a safe space rather than
Yeah.
experience the masculine in the past. And so it starts a
Yeah.
2 year journey around that with that as a major theme. Um,
Yeah. And being more, I think, attentive to your physical body um, as well, because the moon rules our cycles and our just our bodies, really, our biorhythms, maybe our sleep patterns, and just and when I feel retrograde planets, to me, it feels like we're doing it practically in a very, whether it's technical or whether it's just in our lives, whereas when they're not retrograde we consider them more maybe conceptually or psychologically, or it seems further away as opposed to just being very tactical and just really feeling the Mars or whatever the retrograde planets is
Visceral. I
in
think
your
it's
life.
quite, I think
Visceral, that's right.
what you're looking for, visceral, because it's like it's because they're so bright and they're so easy to see at that time too. So we have a more visceral experience of them when they're,
Mm-hmm.
ugh, love that. So good. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that in.
Oh, we can't ignore Mars.
Right, we cannot. We cannot.
Yeah.
And
And
then
of course,
Venus goes
Mars is the
retrograde.
rule. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say Venus goes retrograde shortly. I mean, March 1st. Venus is going retrograde, and then Mercury goes retrograde on March 14th. And it's like, wow, we've got the three planets closest to the Earth going retrograde, all in the
Hmm.
beginning of this, the first 3 months of this year. It's pretty,
Yeah. And Mars, of course, is the ruler of Aries.
yes.
And so it's like, and like what you mentioned before, all of this stuff happening between Aries and Pisces. um, you know, Mars is the manager of that. So it's bringing what's happening now, like all of the intentions and the actions of Mars right now in this moon occultation, into that great pivot or whatever you want to call it in the next equinox. It's a continuing story for that time. And you might say, oh, well, what's Mars got to do with Pisces? Well, Mars is also the triplicity ruler of Pisces. So, another form of dignity is the triplicity rulers. So each sign has three triplicity rulers. Mars is the night triplicity ruler of Pisces. So it's very, it seems a bit sort of counterintuitive, but in a hidden way, Mars has a lot of support for the sign of Pisces, especially at the nighttime. So, I'm hopeful that this whole Mars Pisces shift, like some good can come of it. This, whatever this pivot or this shift means for you, or, concerning the houses of Aries and Pisces in your chart. Like, there's some hidden magic happening there, like a hidden hand of support for Pisces.
Oh, I love,
Yeah.
so good. Yes, hidden hand of magic, or the hidden magic that's right, but it's right there if we're
Yeah.
willing to see it and to invite it to be part of our experience.
Yeah. 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 And
I
the
feel
other thing too, I know we didn't speak about this, so I'm kind of going off cuff a little bit, but this kind of sextile formation that's happening this year with the outer planets. So we've got Pisces, Saturn and Neptune sextile to um, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, sextile to Uranus, who's going into
Gemini,
Gemini. And then there's
Pluto, and
uh,
Aquarius.
Pluto and Aquarius. That's the other one. So there's these major slow moving planets changing signs into this configuration that's actually very helpful and hopeful for humanity.
Yes.
Um, but I'm interested in the faster moving planets, because every time they lock into one of these air and fire signs, they're completing this key and potentially making this big Star of David configuration, which is made out of six aspects, three oppositions, and three sextiles or trines. Am I right? I'm getting a bit confused.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it comes into this lock, momentarily. And I think Mars and the moon does that a few times throughout the year, where they're connecting with these big outer planets in these sextile configurations to bring these opportunities to life to the people. Like, they're not just big outer moving planets that are, lofty and, you know, big picture. It's bringing it right down to our personal lives, like ways in which we can use those energies. And so that's the other thing I'm looking for this year as well, with the movement of Mars and the moon.
Oh,
And I,
I love that. And we were talking about this earlier, like how rare it is that we have all these different cycles happening, the Aries Pisces dance, the nodes moving from Aries back into Pisces every 18 and a half years, the lunar standstill every 19 years. We have Venus doing the Aries Pisces thing, and that the last time it did it in this exact configuration was 251 years ago, 1774.
Mhm.
So, like, has this ever happened before? I mean, to have
Yeah,
all these things line up, and then, as you were saying, the sextiles between the outer planets and the faster moving outer planets. I mean, I guess Pluto's also kind of being involved in that initially, but it'll get left behind, probably.
yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, and I think we were talking before the show. I mean, you brought to my attention about 1774 as the last time something like this came close to happening, but that was the time just before Pluto moved into Aquarius. And in fact, by the next lunar standstill, Pluto will be moving out of Aquarius at that same time. So echoing that same kind of pair of aspects that are happening. So
Yes, yeah, it's so brilliant because it will be 2044 when Pluto's moving into Pisces.
Pisces. Hmm.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So yes. So
And
how old will you be?
80 something. No,
Yeah.
maybe
So
80 something. Anyway, but also 2043 being the next lunar standstill. So,
mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So I've made a pact with my children that wherever they are in the world at 2043, they'll come back and gather at this lunar standstill site on the property, because we are making kind of like a sculpture that's going to act like a bit of a,
So the
an
moon is going to
observatory.
be like something the moon will rise up but in the center point of the sculpture. I love that
Yes.
so much. It's like, how
Yes.
cool is that? Yeah.
Yeah, and also we're going to do a time capsule, and everyone will be able to write a letter to their children or their future selves. And yeah, the kids and I have made a pact that we will dig it up, at the next lunar standstill, and we'll try and find everyone to get these letters to, in 19 years' time.
So fun.
That will be our mission.
Good. So good. Yeah. So hopefully I'll be still around then.
Yeah, maybe you should come to the next one.
Maybe I should. That would be cool.
Yep,
Oh,
move
no.
across Callanish. You need to come to Guildford.
Yes. Go to the Southern Hemisphere instead of the North. I love that. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
anything else you can think of that we should say before we wrap this up?
I think we've covered a fair bit of material.
Think so too.
Yeah.
I will
Um,
I will put some links in the show notes how you can connect with Shu. Also, I'll put a link to the book that I mentioned. I think it's out of print, but you might be able to find it somewhere. I know people have told me they have found it. Um,
mhm.
and
Yeah.
uh, and if you have any, do you have any videos that you've done on the lunar standstill?
I've just done one for, well, I spoke about it at the Kepler College forecast panel. I'll have to find the link. I'll email that through to you.
Okay. And
And
then
for that event,
that's something you can share. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, as long as it's okay for you.
yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It's
Okay.
on YouTube.
Okay.
And actually for that event, I made this kind of lunar standstill kind of ephemeris thing, but I kind of highlighted the best times to actually view them. So based on the fullness of the moon, I
Yes.
guess. So,
Yes.
and that's a free download on my website, which I can send you the link to as well.
Oh,
Because I
beautiful.
was kind of doing that for myself, so I thought I might as well put that on my
Share it.
site.
Yes.
Yep, share it. And the other thing too is, one more point to add about these out of bounds moon is that its effect on the tides. So the moon is creating a tidal bulge that's, either higher or lower in latitude. for the countries that are sharing that same latitude. And those countries are getting higher expected tides, but also possibly rainfall. And we definitely see that the case in Australia, where the northern part of Australia, which are between the 27 and 28 degrees latitude, like they're going through massive floods at the moment on the eastern coast. I think even on the western coast as well. So that's the other thing to be mindful of too, like that these weird places where the moon is traveling to is bringing about more watery lunar activities that is erratic and wild and outside of normal conventional behavior.
And then if they happen to be perigee, meaning closest to the Earth at the same time as they are in their extreme out of bounds, whoa, that would be amazing to keep track of that too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is
Totally.
so much fun, Shu. I'm so glad we did this. We'll have to do it again sometime soon, as we maybe track through this lunar
Mm-hmm.
standstill year, and maybe we'll come together again. Like I'm thinking June solstice time or something.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be
We could
fun.
reconnect and just kind of see where things are at and what happened and what our experience was and to share that with people. So be sure to check out the show notes because there'll be some fun links and things for you to connect with there. And um, yay, just I just feel like 2025 is beyond miraculously magical. So amazing. So great that we got to do this together.
Thank you. And it's been such an honor to be on this show. I kind of consider you as one of the wisest women on this earth. um,
Oh, thank you. Oh,
so
that's
it's been so great to, you know, actually talk to you in person, well, online. So thank you.
online in person. Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
It's been
Yeah.
so much fun. And so, yes, hopefully everybody will be inspired and feel that they'll go out and sit with the moon and the stars and some of these amazing alignments that are taking place. And oh, by the way, Mars is out of bounds currently until I think the middle of February. So we also
I think mid-April.
mid-April. Oh,
But
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's going direct in February. So, yes, you're right.
yes.
Mid-April is
Yeah.
out of bounds. So, we have that in addition to the fact that the moon is going out of bounds twice a month.
Yeah. It's all happening.
Still, all right. So, okay, good. All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see
Bye-bye.
you soon.